Hello everyone and welcome to episode 19 of F1 Talk, and in this episode I'm going to go over my quarter season review of the Formula 1 2012 World Championship. And to begin with, as you very well know if you're an F1 fan, we've had 5 races, 5 different winners from 5 different constructors, and what it's basically done is thrown the form book out of the window. Gone are the days of Red Bull dominance, and quite frankly I am very happy about that. Not the fact that Sebastian Vettel isn't winning every race, it's the fact that he's only won one race this year. It's the mere fact that the field and the races are more open than I can personally remember. I don't actually remember another year when we had 5 different winners and 5 different constructors, you know, and that's in the first 5 races of the year. You know, we've still got 15 to go, and it's quite clear that because of the 5 different winners, no one team has moved out in front yet. Okay, Red Bull are still winning the Constructors' Championship, but you have to be honest and say this year is the most open year in F1 history. It's got to be. And I do apologise about those noises in the background. I'm going to give you a few points. You know, I'm not going to go through driver by driver, team by team. I'll do that at the end of the season. What I'd like to talk about at the moment are just a few points that I've noticed during the season, and you know, I'll talk to you about those. So first off with McLaren, are they pressing the self-destruct button? And that's no pun. You know, they've had success after success in years gone by with Senna, you know, Hakkinen, Prost, Berger. You know, I'm talking about the great years at McLaren when they won the championship and they did this, they did that, and now, you know, basically since they got rid of Ron Dennis from the actual team makeup, he's still heavily involved with McLaren, and you know, but it seems to me that as soon as Ron Dennis walked out, they lost a little bit of organisational skills. And you know, McLaren are capable of winning races, yes, but last season and this season specifically, there has been a heck of a lot of mistakes made by the Woking outfit, and I don't actually think that they've fully recovered from the departure of Ron Dennis. Can they claw back? Can they win some more races and win the championship? As I've said in previous videos, when Jenson Button gets hooked up around a circuit, he's virtually unstoppable. But when he cannot get his setup right, he is without doubt not the best in the field. Red Bull losing confidence, and quite frankly they must be. For 2010, most of it, and definitely for all of 2011 apart from a couple of races, they were absolutely dominant, and quite frankly F1 was going back to the Schumacher era of not having, you know, competitiveness at a grand scale. Now Red Bull have admitted that this year it's not going to be as easy because the advantages they had are simply not there, and it's clear to see from everyone's point of view. And again, I do apologise about the noises in the background. Some work's being done next door. I pose a question to you viewers: are Ferrari back? Or more importantly, is Fernando Alonso back? The race win at Malaysia for Alonso wasn't expected. It happened in changeable weather conditions, But the big question, Ferrari made significant gains during the 3-day test at Mugello in Italy. They changed their side aerodynamics, and there are more updates expected, as you'd expect from a big team like Ferrari. The thing is, Alonso looked much more competitive in Spain. Now, that might have had something to do with the fact that it was Spain, and Alonso tried that much harder. I don't know. But since sort of like middle of the season last year, sort of after Canada more or less, you could see Alonso was put in 110% into every race performance. And that seems to be the case again this year. It's obvious that Felipe Massa isn't up to the job. Alonso is scoring podiums with a seemingly uncompetitive car, and Massa's barely scoring points. You've got to get rid of Massa. You've got to start thinking about replacing him, possibly with a Perez, possibly with a Di Resta, to make Alonso undisputed number one, but bring some fresh air into the team. Felipe Massa is, old and stale. He's the same age as Alonso, but he's getting nothing in terms of, Alonso's undisputed number one, really, but Ferrari are fourth in the Constructors' Championship with 3 points, and they're not going to challenge for the Constructors' title, all the while Felipe Massa is with the team. We've had 2 first-time winners this year so far of the 5 race wins. Nico Rosberg in the Mercedes and Pastor Maldonado in the Williams. Now, it's fantastic to see new race winners, it always is, but it's even better to see the return of Mercedes and the return of Williams respectively, for Rosberg and Maldonado winning those races. It's opened up the championship, and alright, it might not, they probably won't affect the championship contenders, but we're getting new winners. I'm happy as Larry. At least it's not one team all the time, because that does get a little bit boring. There's no doubt about it. And speaking of the return of Williams, it's as soon as they drop the crappy engines. I'm talking about the old Toyota engine deal they had in 07, the Works Cosworth deal. You're not going to win an F1 race in a Ford or a Cosworth anymore. You're just not. And they drop the Cosworth engines. They sign an engine deal with Renault, who are reigning champions with Red Bull and Vettel. And the season they do that, the season they bring back Williams Renault, they win a race. Brilliant. And you could see from the first race of the season that the car was so much better than last year. And the technical shuffle that they did towards the end of 2011 has easily made a difference. There's no doubt about it. They got a race win. In the first or second race, they had scored more points this year than they did for the whole of last year. The 3 new teams, or the 3 newer teams, we're talking Marussia, Hispania and Caterham. What's the point? What is the point? These teams have had 3, they've had 2 seasons of full Grand Prix action, and they've now had a quarter of this season as I post this video, and quite frankly they are absolutely pointless. When Caterham, formerly known as Lotus or Lotus Racing, whatever you want to call them, came 10th in the constructor last year, or finished top of the 3 newer teams last year, they said, we can start moving forward now. We get that much more money from our sponsors. And yet the step they made forward is pretty much like that. And quite frankly, it's time for them to show what they can do. HRT are rooted to the rear of the grid because of their finances. They just cannot move anywhere. The 3-day test at Mugello recently took place, and they were the only team not to take part in the test. Now, if any team needs testing, it's HRT. They didn't get any testing done because they didn't take part, I do believe, due to financial reasons. Now, if you're going to compete in Formula 1, even at the back of the grid, you need a substantial amount of money. And they're only getting that from the sponsors of McLaren Carthagena. And in my opinion, that's the reason Carthagena is in Formula 1. He's quite old for an F1 driver now, and you know, he's, in my opinion, Carthagena's worst driver in Formula 1 history. I mean, I was looking at the qualifying times the other day for the Spanish Grand Prix. De La Rosa came 23rd out of 24, and he was 4 or 5 seconds quicker. I say 4 or 5, it's probably closer to 2 or 3, but he was that amount quicker than Carthagena. And excuse me just a moment. He was that much quicker than Carthagena, it was unreal. And it just goes to show that Carthagena is not a Formula 1 driver. He is an older driver that is in F1 because he's bringing in money. Now when that money dries up, so will HRT, in my opinion. Russia, with their new name, and quite frankly, the ghost of Timo Glock, you know, could have been so much more, but all he is now is a development driver, and that's kind of sad for a guy that won GP2 a few years back. It's also sad for him because he's not going to get a better offer because of these drives. He's doing his best, he's trying to bring a team forward, you know, and Marussia are only just better than HRT, and that's quite sad to say. But the most disappointing of the 3 new teams is obviously Caterham, nay Lotus, nay Team Lotus, whatever. You know, they brought in Vitaly Petrov, the Renault refugee, they've got rid of Jarno Trulli, and they're not moving anywhere. They're not going backwards, they're not going forwards, they're stuck. And to be honest, I think that's a lot to do with the fact that they still haven't got cars. If you're going to do anything in F1, you need all of the tools available to you. They haven't got cars. Do they expect to get in the points? No. Even though, you know, the last race at Spain, we had the most retirements in the race that we've had for quite a while. Caterham still didn't get anywhere near the points, and that needs to change. They even need, see, 1 point would make all the difference to Caterham. They'd be the first of the 3 newer teams to get a point, but like their points tally for the last 2 seasons, and like the points tally so far this season, both of the other teams and Caterham are pointless. And we're on to the final section of this particular video. Who's going to win the championship? I haven't got a clue. You know, as I said at the start, and as you well know, if you're an F1 fan watching this, 5 different race wins from 5 different constructors. And, you know, I haven't got a clue who's going to win from race to race. It seems as the one team's strong one weekend, but rubbish the next, and so on. The cycle continues. But I have I wouldn't say a strong tip for the championship, but there is one team that I haven't spoken about yet. I mean, there's plenty of teams I haven't spoken about: Force India, Toro Rosso, blah 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 blah. But one team is consistently scoring points and has consistently got both their drivers in the top 10 scoring positions. Lotus. My tip for the championship this year is Kimi Raikkonen. So far, obviously. He's been creeping into the points and creeping up onto podium finishes. Last 2 races at least, he has scored big points. He quite frankly should have won the 4th round of the championship in Bahrain. A little bit more luck, he could have, got second, possibly even beaten Maldonado and Alonso at Spain. And he's slowly but surely, creeping up the championship standings. Let's take a look at his points after the 5th round. Raikkonen is 4th on 49 points. And that's not too far away from the championship lead. The car is quick in qualifying, and as said in the race the other day, it could very well be a case of the Lotus is not really competitive at a high fuel load level. As soon as the fuel starts to burn off, they get into the race while other teams fall away. And that's something to look out for, in my own personal opinion. Can Lotus get that win? Can Lotus continue to consistently score big points? I'm not on about 2 or 3 here or there. I'm on about big points. I'm on about 15 plus, and should that continue to happen, then the championship goes to the most consistent performer over the 20 races. And so far, alright, yes, we've had a race win from certain members of the paddock, but the most consistent point scorer, I think, this year is Kimi Raikkonen, even though he's not top of the championship table. So you heard it here first, folks. Kimi Raikkonen, this year's champion. And I'll see you next time for some more F1 talk.